For decades, the standard for corporate design was the perfectly aligned machine. The goal: eliminate friction between departments, budgets, and reporting lines for maximum efficiency. But as organizations face rapid technological shifts, globalized markets, and changing workforce expectations, this rigid model is struggling to adopt. When the environment moves, a system without any internal play tends to seize up. In response, management theory often presents leaders with a binary choice between two structural extremes. On one end is the package, a fragmented collection of ad hoc practices where individual departments act without central coordination. On the other end is the system, the traditional gold standard, where every metric, budget, and appraisal is rigidly interdependent. If one gear moves, the grid moves. While the system looks efficient on paper, it creates a specific paradox. In a dynamic environment, the very interdependence that ensures alignment also prevents the organization from pivoting quickly. The pursuit of perfect internal consistency often results in a brittle organization, one that achieves high short-term efficiency but lacks the internal slack necessary for long-term innovation. To find a more resilient model, we have to look at loose coupling theory. It's an academic framework suggesting intermediate levels of organizational friction actually lead to better performance. Surviving a volatile market requires moving past the quest for perfect alignment and instead engineering a structure designed for adaptability. A functional organization must balance two competing needs: the order of a rational system and the freedom of an indeterminate one. Loose coupling theory maps these needs across two vectors. On the y-axis, we have responsiveness. On the x-axis, we have distinctiveness. Responsiveness is the vector of coordination. It represents how effectively an organization can execute a unified, top-down reaction to change. This vector has 4 dimensions. First is strength, how quickly a change in one mechanism triggers a proportional change in another. Second is directness, the extent to which target setting in one department directly dictates the goals of the connected department. Third is consistency, the ability for connected mechanisms to react uniformly when an external shock hits the organization. Finally, dependence, when two systems, like your budget and balance scorecard, rely on the exact same pool of performance measures. High responsiveness prevents the organization from devolving into a chaotic, uncoordinated package. But on its own, high responsiveness just builds the brittle, perfect system we saw earlier. To make it work, you need a counterforce. That critical counterforce is distinctiveness. This vector measures the capacity for local autonomy and unique control behaviors within the organization. Distinctiveness is often the first thing stripped away when leadership over-engineers corporate structure for perfect alignment. The first dimension of distinctiveness is emphasis on control. This differentiates between systems built for ex-ante planning and ex-post monitoring. Second is use. Distinctive systems allow for an interactive use of data to detect strategic uncertainty rather than just a diagnostic use for routine checking. The third is discretion, the balance between hard, objective data and the necessity of subjective, human managerial judgment. Building in discretion allows managers to account for nuances that raw data might miss. This creates psychological safety. Because local context is valued, managers feel safe reporting honest numbers rather than manipulating them to fit a rigid, unyielding metric. Distinctiveness serves as a critical shock absorber. It allows local units to adapt to their specific environment without needing the entire corporate hierarchy to shift. These dimensions aren't just theoretical concepts. We can mathematically model an organization's actual architecture with them. Researchers analyzed 3 specific corporate mechanisms: budgeting, non-financial performance measurement, and performance appraisal, to see exactly how they were actually linked. This created the Performance Management System Coupling Index, or PMSCI. It evaluates pathways between these systems, assigning a 0 or 1 for responsiveness and distinctiveness. A loose coupling state requires scoring a 1 in both, ensuring coordination and autonomy. No coupling occurs when responsiveness drops to 0. The systems stop communicating, and the organization loses its ability to move as a single entity. But tight coupling is also a failure state. When responsiveness is high but distinctiveness is 0, the systems lock together. Think of an R&D department. If their performance appraisals are rigidly tied to short-term financial budgeting, they will likely avoid any innovation that doesn't show an immediate profit. A loosely coupled structure fixes this by allowing for subjective evaluation in the appraisal process. The R&D team stays responsive to the corporate strategy, but they have the distinctiveness to pursue long-term innovation. The PMSCI provides a blueprint for this balance. It suggests that tension and autonomy are not signs of a broken system, but a requirement for a resilient one. With the model established, we can now look at the data to see which of these structural states actually performs best. Researchers tested the PMSCI against 140 managers across a variety of corporate sectors to see how coupling tightness affected their results. This scatterplot shows the results. The x-axis tracks coupling tightness from a disjointed 1 to a perfectly integrated 5. The y-axis tracks overall organizational success. The data shows both extremes underperform. A 1 is too chaotic, and a 5 is too rigid. The peak of the curve occurs right at a score of 3. Intermediate levels of coupling, loose coupling, deliver the highest outcomes for both managerial effectiveness and process innovation. The decline at score 5 illustrates the hidden cost of perfect integration. The coordination required to keep every system locked together is expensive, and a single change in one department creates a chain reaction requiring a massive corporate overhaul. This intermediate state allows for ambidexterity. It is an organization's ability to remain highly efficient in its core operations while simultaneously using autonomous, loose pathways to explore and develop radical new innovations. The data is clear. Maximum alignment is not the same thing as maximum performance. These mathematical scores connect directly back to the pressures of technological change and the rapid globalization we identified at the start. In this environment, you cannot separate a firm's performance architecture from the people who operate within it. By protecting managerial discretion, loose coupling acts like a vehicle's suspension system, absorbing brutal shocks while keeping the main chassis firmly on course. For corporate strategists, the mandate is to move away from rigid, perfectly aligned systems that demand every department move at the same cadence. Instead, audit your current performance management systems. Look for the areas where tight coupling is suffocating the ability for local units to use their own judgment. Engineering deliberate shock absorbers into your reporting and appraisal structures isn't an admission of failure, it's a strategy for resilience. The most innovative organizations are not structured for perfect alignment. They are strategically structured for